My name's Angelo, and welcome to We Want Picks. This is the only channel dedicated to UFC picks and DraftKings lineups run by professional fighters and MMA insiders. Every week, I join Nick Newell, professional fighter, professional model, and ESPN Top 10 guest, along with Dan Kramer, UFC fighter, Bellator fighter, Ultimate Fighter alumni, and Jacob Lyons, a skinny kid from Indiana. And we break down every single fight, the betting odds, the DraftKings picks, and we set you up for success. This week, we're breaking down the Blaydes versus Lewis fight night. Next up on UFC Fight Night, Blaydes versus Lewis, we have Aiemann Zahabi versus Drako Rodriguez. And Zahabi, you are right, that is Firas Zahabi's brother. So George St. Pierre's very famous coach. This is his brother. So interesting matchup. This is another one where the fight will be exciting and the odds are wrong, at least in my opinion. So I don't think Rodriguez is a 2-1 favorite. I think he's a very good fighter. He's wild, and he's fighting Zahabi, who's much more technical. Dan, we had this conversation a few weeks ago about a different fight where you mentioned a wild fighter can be tricky. So what do you think happens here?
I agree with you. I don't think the odds in the DraftKings price are reflective of how this fight will go down. I watched some tape on Zahabi. First of all, he's the younger brother of the TriStar head coach, Firas Zahabi. He lost his last two, but hasn't fought since May of 2019. So I don't know. You got to assume he's at TriStar, his brother's head coach. He's training and improving. Could be wrong on that, but I would think he's improving. He did look a little flat-footed in his striking, especially for a division where guys move like crazy. He's got a good jab, good uppercut. He's a black belt in BJJ. Fought competitive against a tough Ricardo Ramos. It was a bit outclassed and eventually got KO'd, but he looked tough. He got hit with that spinning elbow that broke his jaw. I don't know if you guys saw that video, but pretty brutal. He lost the decision to Vince Morales. Same thing, not a ton of footwork, kind of plods a bit. Looks to like to strike, but will shoot a takedown occasionally. So he seems good. He's well-rounded. I just think he hasn't shown that breakout performance. And depending on what he's been doing the past couple of years, we could get that or we could get more of what we've seen. As far as Rodriguez goes, he's 24 years old. His last fight was on Dana White Contender Series, the end of 2020 against Mana Martinez. He looks like a very good striker, very comfortable. He got a takedown. He got threatened with an armbar and ended up on the bottom. He landed a triangle, so he scrambled pretty well. He's got some submission awareness. But what I will say is all his previous fights were to guys with losing records, except for Tony Gravely, who he lost to in the 5th round via TKO in 2018. So Zahabi's the underdog. I would not be surprised if he shows up much improved after the layoff, assuming he's training at TriStar and getting better. I feel like he might be a live underdog on this one, but kind of no actual proof to show it. I just feel like the odds are wrong and this guy is going to be better than what we're seeing on paper. So we'll see. Could be wrong. You're going to make me make a pick, Angelo. Very low confidence, but for the sake of picking an upset, I'll go with Zahabi.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. This is definitely a tricky one to pick. I don't know what money I would throw at this, and I think maybe you throw Zahabi in a lineup if you have the room, or if you need the room. But Nick, what are your thoughts on this? And quick reminder, Zahabi, he's had a long layoff, but he hasn't won a fight in 4 years. So is that a factor? What do you think, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, Zahabi does that step forward hook really well. I remember the fight he won. I remember watching. I'm like, oh, he's really good at this. He keeps going to the well with it. But he's not a very dynamic fighter I would even say an athletic fighter. He's not that powerful, like takedown artist type guy. He's more of a guy that strikes, and if he ends up on top, he's going to do his jiu-jitsu. And even though he's shot before, I wouldn't say he's like a very strong wrestler. Then you look at Drako Rodriguez, who's fought a lot of people with losing records, beat a winning record guy on Contender Series, and I think won other ones, and then lost to Tony Gravely, who's a hammer of a wrestler, who's a TKO'd a lot of people in the regional scene, was a CES champion, and is an all-around beast. What this comes down to is I think Zahabi is a martial artist, but he's not super athletic or anything like that. And Drako Rodriguez is a dog, and he's got that dog in him, and he's gonna pull off the win. How confident I am in that, I don't know, but I'm going with Drako Rodriguez, and I'm not touching this fight.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned the CES thing. So CES, for anybody who doesn't know, local promotion in the Northeast, but they have some awesome talent. Nick, you fought there, but others and friends of ours have fought there, but they managed to get some really good talent, breakout talent in the entire Northeast for the most part. And I think Draco's very good. I think he's genuinely a very good fighter. Like you said, we talked earlier, the difference between a mixed martial artist and a fighter. I think Draco's more of a fighter, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, especially in this matchup when he is fighting, Zahabi. It's interesting because you mentioned he's not super athletic, and I agree with that. And that's not necessarily a knock. Some people are naturally gifted and others have to work a little harder for it. But I think it's sort of a weird situation where his brother is like this world famous coach. He's interested in fighting. He's around it, and he just sort of started fighting, and maybe it's not necessarily, he has to work pretty hard to do well at it. So it's an interesting matchup. I will give my pick. I'm going to take Rodriguez. I think the odds are wrong though. I don't think he's a 2-1 favorite, but I think he does win this fight. I think Zahabi is very, regimented. Okay, I'm standing. It's time to strike. We're on the ground. It's time to do jiu-jitsu. And I don't think he has like those fighter instincts and that natural ability. But Jacob, why don't you go ahead and make a pick here? So we've got 1 for Zahabi, 2 for Rodriguez.
Yeah. So the first thing I saw about Zahabi was not even about him. It was about the level of competition he's been facing. So let me just quickly run through here. His 2 wins ago, a guy's 3-2 here. Then we go to 3 wins ago, guy's 3-1. So he's not bad. That was his first loss. Then you go to 4 wins ago, the guy's 7-12. Then you go a little bit deeper, guys 0-3. So the level of competition I see, guys 4-9. When I watched Zahabi, I saw a fighter that looked like he was just kind of stuck in the mud, got to take a line from Connor. So, and the level of competition on top of that just kind of pad the record. I see Drako in boxing matches. I also see he's got a bunch of submission wins on top of it. I think he's a better fighter. I think Drako takes this easily. I don't think Zahabi's. I think Dan alluded to it. That's why he took the year off, to try and get better, because they realized once they got to the UFC that he just wasn't as good as he thought he was. So Drako wins this one easy. I don't have him in my lineup, but he wins this easy.
Yeah, that's an interesting taking a year off to get better. That's an interesting thought there. So it's 3-1. 3 of us are going Rodriguez, with Dan, the lone survivor, for Zahabi. We'll see how that plays out. All of us agree these odds aren't quite what they should be. Before you go, check out the description below. In there, we have links to our Facebook, our Twitter, our Instagram, and more importantly, to our DraftKings League. Check out the league, join the league, participate in the contests, and as we get going and as you start winning, we're going to start handing out gift cards and participating and doing things like that. So check those out. Every week, there are drops on every fight card. So make sure you check out this channel and our social media on Saturday before the fights start so that you have our most updated lineups and picks.